Hello, welcome to Monte Carlo to Marlow. This podcast is sponsored by the Marlow Living Loyalty app. Welcome, Maddy, to Monte Carlo to Marlow. And we met in Monte Carlo, so yeah.
We did. I'm so honored and so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
And you're in Costa Rica now. So we met when I was organising In Your Element in Monte Carlo, which took place in 2019. And then you made a pretty swift exit straight afterwards. But actually, you were such a massive help in introducing me to all your network that were in Monte Carlo, that were into health and fitness. So see if you can cast your mind back to being in Monaco, pre-Costa Rica, and talk about sort of trying to be healthy and talk about your personal journey with your diet and fitness and also sort of a champagne party lifestyle in Monaco.
You have to throw that in if you're in Monaco.
All the hats. Yeah.
God, that feels like a lifetime ago. And at the same time, it feels like yesterday. Well, first of all, that was a fantastic event you put on. And every time I go back to Monaco, I'm like, I wish we could do something like that again.
We will. I'm sure. I feel like this podcast is almost sort of putting it back out there, I feel.
Mm-hmm. Because I feel like there's a real demand and a need for it. And I think Monaco's ready. I think you're a little bit ahead of your time.
Yeah. And it was pre-COVID. So
it was pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And I think that Monaco, from what I've seen, has changed a lot. And people are a lot more receptive to those kind of initiatives now. So I'm very excited to see what you come up with. And so I moved to Monaco in 2009. I had no intention of living in Monaco. It was completely random. No, I was living in London. And so I was working for the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Shadow Chancellor of the Exchequer, who then became the Chancellor of the Exchequer, George Osborne, in London until 2000. And in 2008, I decided that I wanted to go into the the private sector. So I got a job in financial PR. And in between the two jobs, I decided to go to Costa Rica. And I fell in love with Costa Rica. And I went back to London. And within about a week, I was like, I'm not doing this new job. I'm moving to Costa Rica. And everyone was like, what? Are you out of your mind? You've just secured. I'd been it was this traineeship with this big financial PR firm. I was chosen amongst 100 candidates. I'd made it through all these rounds of interviews. And in my first week, I'm like, I'm out. And they were like, what are you going to do? And they probably thought I was going to say, well, I got a better offer or something like that. And I was like, no, I'm moving to Costa Rica to be a Pilates teacher. And they're like, okay, she's out of her mind. Obviously, she's smoked something. She's on something, which I absolutely hadn't. I was just like, I just can't live this life in London now that I've seen Costa Rica. So anyway, I quit my job. I qualified as a Pilates teacher and I decided to go to Costa Rica. And on my way to Costa Rica, I met up with some friends in 2008, had kind of lost everything. And they were kind of camping out in the Caribbean. And they're like, why don't you stop by on your way out to Costa Rica? And I was like, sure. So we're New Year's Eve in St. Bart, and my friends tell me, what are your resolutions for the new year? And I was like, well, I'm moving to Costa Rica. I'm going to start my life there. I'm going to have a business doing Pilates in Costa Rica. And they're like, well, we're moving to Monaco. So why don't you move to Monaco with us? And I was like, Monaco, Costa Rica? I was like, I'm traveling on a shoestring. I had a backpack with all my belongings in it. I had about 500 euros, I think, at the time, which was going to last me for a month. I was like, there's no way I'm going to make it.
I can't imagine you with a backpack, Maddy. It has to be Dior at least.
And no, it was I was just like, there's no way I'm going to ever make it in Monaco. Are you guys out of your mind? So anyway, fast forward, I did go to Costa Rica for 3 months. And within 3 months, I realized I'm not ready for this life yet. Costa Rica is very different at the time. And so I traveled back to Europe and my friend immediately called me and she was like, hey, so now are you moving to Monaco? And I was like, no, I'm not moving to Monaco. This is a joke. And she was like, come on, we're building this yacht. You can stay on our yacht. We'll introduce you to all our friends so you can be a Pilates teacher to our friends. You'll make a ton of money. And then eventually you'll find yourself a place to live. And I was like, I'm not doing that. That sounds crazy. I'd been working in politics. I had this brief moment of thinking that I was going to be a Pilates teacher in Costa Rica. But then I came back to Belgium. My mom was like, I'll help you find a job in the EU headquarters in Brussels. I was like, that sounds stable. That sounds like exactly the thing I'm meant to be doing with my life right now. I was 25 at the time, or just turned 26. But my friend kept nagging me. She's like, just come for the weekend.
You had Monaco in your ear.
And so I was like, I'll come for the weekend. And I remember I landed in Nice airport and they're like, we'll come and pick you up. And I was like, great. So they came to pick me up by boat. There was a car that took me to the dock and they came to pick me up with their new boat. And they took me
They
to
were flexing to get you to stay.
And we went to Cannes and we partied and it was fun. It was crazy. Then back with the boat. I still have my luggage with me in the boat. We got off the dock in Monaco. They're like, now we're going to go out for dinner. We're going to keep partying. Went to Jimmy's that night. And I was like, okay, this is really fun. Like, this is really fun. But I was like, this is so out of this is not me. Like, I have no place to be in Monaco. Like, I was like living on a shoestring. I had no money. I didn't know what I was doing with my life. But it was really fun. And my friend kept insisting. And eventually I actually got a job in Brussels. It was a Swedish presidency through the European Union. And I had already worked in politics. So I got a job and they gave me a 3-month contract. And my heart was like, I really want to go back to Monaco because that place is insane. But my mind was like, no, you've got this job now. You have to stay in Belgium and do this job. I was working for the Minister of Trade and organizing trade minister events in Brussels. And so my mom, who's like my hero, she's like, don't worry about it, Maddy. You go in and you tell them that, would it be okay if you worked from home for the month of August? And I was like, okay. And she was like, and then you just go to Monaco. And I was like, okay, Mom, that sounds like a great idea.
Your mom.
They probably never found out about this. God knows if they're ever going to listen to this podcast. But anyway, I was working for the government. I go in and I'm like, yeah, I can do this. But do you mind? Like, August is kind of quiet. I don't live very far. Can I just work from home? And this was in 2009.
Yeah,
so back
work from home was not a
working
thing.
from home was not a thing. Somehow my mom was like, try it. And I was like, okay. And it worked. And they're like, sure, just make sure you're in the office. If we need you, we'll give you a call and schedule a meeting. I was like, yeah, just give me a little bit of a heads up. And they're like, no problem. So I secured this job. I flew to Monaco. No, actually, I drove to Monaco in my beaten up car and I didn't have anywhere to live. And so my friends were like, sorry, oops, can't live on the yacht anymore. So I was like, but they were like, there's a youth hostel that you might be able to stay in. And so I was staying in a youth hostel that was 15 euros a night in Cap
Is that
d'Agde.
in Monaco?
No, in Cap d'Agde on that beautiful walk and the Marlow walk, there's this old house which looks like a massive mansion that was owned by the government. I don't know if it's still there, but they had transformed it into like a youth hostel. And so I showed up there with my beaten up car and I'm like, I need a place to stay. And they're like, sure. So they led me into this room that had like 6 bunk beds and they're like, you can stay here. I was like, how much? They're like, 15 euros a night. I'm like, fantastic. Sign me up. So the view was insane. I was staying in this.
That is such a beautiful place to stay.
Amazing. And I could walk out in the morning and be by the sea, you know, it's great. But at the same time, I had these super jet setting friends who were inviting me to all these places and they introduced me to their friends. And I remember one night in the very beginning, within the first 2 or 3 nights I was there, I was in Jimmy's and someone was like, do you want to drink something? And I was like, I can't afford anything in here.
Nobody can afford a drink in Jimmy's.
So I'm like, what do I say?
A Coke for like £15, and that was about 20 years ago.
And I think the guy looked at me and he saw how horrified I was, and he was like, "Don't worry, I'll pay for it." And I was like, "Okay, I'll have a Coke." And I remember the Coke was more than the night I was paid, like the price I was paying for night in that youth hostel. Like as you said, it was over £15, and this was in 2009 2009. So here we are at Jimmy's and he goes to me and he says, where are you staying? And I'm like, at the youth hostel. And he's like, no, where are you staying? And I'm like, no, I'm staying at the youth hostel in Cap d'Agde. And he's like, are you for real? And I'm like, yeah. And he kind of looked at me and he's like, no, you can't keep living at the youth hostel in Cap d'Agde. Like, we need to find you a proper place to live. And I'm like, I'm fine. Like, this is great. Anyway, cut a short, long story short, he ended up giving me a place to stay because his parents had an apartment that they weren't reusing and so on. So I ended up finding a place to stay kind of short term to help me out in the beginning. And with time, things started falling into place. I ended up getting a job in real estate. I ended up teaching Pilates on the side and things grew, you know, like I think Monaco's kind of magic like that. If you're willing to work hard and if you're a connector, then things come to you. And I managed somehow to eventually get my own place officially in Monaco, to become a Monaco resident, to have a Monaco business that was doing really well, to have incredible clients, to at the same time have a job in real estate. And I lived there for 10 years and it was fabulous. And I feel like I still haven't answered your questions about combining the healthy with the naughty in a way.
Well, absolutely. I didn't know that side. I mean, we've met and we've sort of know each other, but I didn't know the youth hostel side of you. That's so brilliant, that story. You were working in real estate and teaching Pilates as well. So you were still kind of had your toe in like the health and fitness industry.
Exactly. When I first arrived, I needed to make money, and I was introduced to someone who's a real estate developer. And he was like, I'll give you a job. And I was like, I just need a salary because I can't go around scrambling for, I mean, in the very beginning, I had that job in Brussels where I got a standing ovation for the incredible work I'd done for this trade minister meeting. And I was like, yeah, no one ever knew. I was sitting in the port of Monaco in my friend's office, overlooking the port, surrounded, they're like a VC fund or whatever. And I was sitting there negotiating trade minister, for all the events I was hosting and everything. I was just like, this is so weird.
I hope your camera was off.
But it all worked out. It was incredible. I just had once, they called me. They're like, hey, Maddy, where are you? Can you come in for a meeting this afternoon? And I was like, this afternoon? I don't think that will be possible, but tomorrow morning will be fine. And I immediately called my mom and I was like horrified. She's like, relax, just book a flight, get yourself here this afternoon. You go into the meeting tomorrow. You've got everything covered, don't you? And I was like, I got it. Like I had it under control. And so I flew back, went into the meeting. They're like, great, we just needed to make sure that everything was under control. I was like, yeah, it was. So, and then I flew back and, no one ever found out. So I was working for a real estate developer. I was teaching Pilates on the side. And then slowly the Pilates started growing and growing and growing. And eventually I realized that that's what I wanted to have as my full-time business. So then I stopped the real estate, where I actually made the real estate my side hustle more so. Because what I realized as well is when I was going around and meeting all these new Pilates clients, in the middle of a conversation, a Pilates client would be like, I need to find a new place to live. And I was like, I got you.
Actually, I can also do that.
And somehow, the level of trust that we developed together working as Pilates client and coach, they're like, sure, help me find a place. And so I got quite a lot of clients like that. And I was really grateful for the people I worked for in real estate who are like, no, you go out there, do your thing, and we trust you.
Well,
and
bringing in clients.
Yeah. And it worked really well. So it was great. As for the nutrition, I then studied nutrition, because what I noticed is I would go into my clients, and I had fantastic clients in Monaco. I must say, I don't think I realized how lucky I was until I was no longer there. But I had clients who had me over at their house maybe 3 or 5 times a week. And
Amazing.
So, yeah, which was incredible. When you can develop such a strong relationship and such a level of depth, the job becomes so much more interesting and exciting, because I saw people transform. Because we think Pilates is just transforming the body, but it transformed the mind, the mindset, the energy, the emotions, everything. So I could see them completely change in a really positive way, which was super exciting. And then what I realized, I was like, okay, some clients I was working with, and I would walk out the door and they'd open a bag of chips and I'd be like, what are you doing?
Not on my watch.
And he was like, well, and I was like, no, not on my watch, as you say. And then I was like, I need to do something. And I'd already been super interested in nutrition, because I'd had a lot of issues with and I'd had this obsessive relationship with food when I was younger. And I'd worked already a lot on healing that and understanding better the sides of nutrition that I probably didn't know that much about, and the emotional connection to food and why we use food as a way to numb or reward ourselves. And so I decided to study nutrition, and my first business that I started was called Nutrition for Naughty People. And that was very much
I remember, because that's how I met you. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, that was very much inspired by my life in Monaco and by my clients in Monaco, because I was like, I can't go into these people and say so you're never going to drink wine again. You're only going to drink celery juice, and you can't have this, can't have that.
Pay off French bread.
Exactly. I was like, they're never going to listen to me. So I need to make it accessible. And I wanted that for myself as well, because I'd had such a strict and hard relationship with food. And I realized that not having any flexibility and not allowing myself to have any joy around food was not sustainable. And it was what was creating this kind of either fully on or completely off kind of relationship with food, where I was either being really good and tracking and being super controlling, but frustrated because I felt like I was missing out on certain
It's
things.
just not real life, is it?
No. And then the other side of me that was like, well, I've ruined it. I might as well eat everything. I'm going to have pizza and I'm going to have the burger and then I'm going to have some cake and then I'm going to have this and that. So what I wanted was to find a balance where, and I truly believed it was possible to do that. So that's how I started Nutrition for Naughty People. And I think I learned a lot from my years in Monaco while working with clients. But also, I mean, I started getting clients all over the world when I started Nutrition for Naughty People, which was really exciting, actually. I think that brand was born in Monte Carlo for sure, from seeing like how I wanted to live my life, how I saw the people around me wanted to live their life. I was like, I need to find an edge here where I can get them to listen to me without it feeling like they're going to be on a diet for the rest of their lives.
And you said that you've been back and forth a little bit. So you moved, we did the event in
Yeah.
2019 in July, and then you moved to Costa Rica. How did you find the difference in, obviously, massive culture difference and lifestyle change? What were the biggest things that you realized or you missed or you loved about Costa Rica from Monaco?
I think just the pace here, just it being so much slower. And I love Monaco. I loved my time there. I still love going back. But anyone who spends a lot of time there knows that there's a lot of, keeping up with the Joneses and a lot in appearances and, who knows who and where you go and how you dress and all that kind of stuff. And after a while, you feel like when I came to Costa Rica, I was like, wow, like all of a sudden all that drops away and you're just someone who's walking around in a bikini on a beach. And that's what most people hear. Like there's no jewelry, there's no showing off, there's no, oh, I have this cool car. And there's no like, what restaurant are you going to tonight? Are you on the, yeah, like, there's none of that. And I really, really connected to that when I came to Costa Rica. I really loved that. I just felt like, wow, the weight of that had kind of lifted. Not that I ever felt like I was always stayed pretty clear-headed in Monaco. I was like, I'm looking at the circus, but I'm never planning to be part of the circus, if that makes sense. Like I have to be very realistic about who I am.
Because you did have that sensible head on you, you didn't get too taken in by it. And I'm going to say this, it'll be controversial, but you haven't got a face full of injectables.
No.
And, you're a beautiful girl anyway, but that doesn't seem to matter to a lot of other beautiful women out there. Yeah. And I think there's that pressure, isn't there? It's just not really much of a natural lifestyle.
Yeah,
I met
exactly.
lots of really brilliant people when I was seeking them out to be part of the festival. But I was really conscious of thinking, Monaco's just not used to doing something that doesn't involve like sequins and Lamborghinis and champagne. This was just like rock up in a tracksuit and have a hug at the end of a breathwork class. And it was refreshing for so many people, but it wasn't the norm at that time.
No, exactly. And I think because I discovered Costa Rica in 2008, I kept coming back to Costa Rica every year while I was living in Monaco. And it was kind of my breath of fresh air. It was kind of my moment to like reset a little bit. And I just felt more like there was this voice inside of me that would only show up when I was in Costa Rica that was like whispering to me like, one day this is gonna be home. Like one day this is home. Like this is the place where you can be exactly who you want to be. And not that I was.
Our life is seasons anyway, isn't it?
It is
10 years in Monaco.
Yeah. And it wasn't like I was pretending to be someone else in Monaco, but there's definitely like, what are you going to do on a Saturday night? Like if you get invited to a party, you are going to go and maybe spray champagne on people and party and be crazy and doing these things. And I did that. 100% I did that. And did I enjoy it? 100%. But after doing that for 10 years, you're like, I'm done. Like, I don't want to do
the same here in Marlow. When I lived in London in central London, like 30 years.
Yeah.
And, when people, and no disrespect to people that want to go down the pub, but they're like, come out. I'm like, I'm really all right, actually. And they're like, don't you want to go out? I'm like, I feel like I've been out for the last 25 years every night. And I don't mind staying in quite a lot because we've both been really lucky about the level of kind of social life we've had.
Exactly how I feel. How I feel. And every once in a while, like I miss, I was back in Monaco well, a month ago actually, and I went back to my favorite places. I went to Anjuna and I had so much fun dancing there in the middle of the afternoon. Like it was fabulous. Not that it's necessarily in Monaco, but it's a lot of Monaco people who go there and it's very close to Monaco. And I really, really enjoyed that. But I remember when I was doing that all the time, it wasn't as special. And I got to a point where I was like, I don't want this to be my day-to-day life anymore.
Yeah, you can get a little fix and that's enough for a few months. It's like, okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think that's what I found here in Costa Rica. I was like, wow, this, lights go out at 6 p.m. here and you're in bed by 8 and you're up the next day at 5:30 when the light comes back on and you're out in the surf or you're out, horse riding, or I'm filming workouts or doing these kind of things. And I just feel like it's a much kind of healthier life in a way and much more in tune with nature. And I feel like now I feel a lot more grounded and more secure in myself, even though I still stayed pretty level-headed and strong in Monaco. You always have moments where you're like, you start feeling a little bit insecure because you're surrounded by people. Like I remember, especially in the beginning when I was there, I was like going to these dinners, I was dating someone and I was like, oh my God, like everyone at this table has like this massive watch and all this jewelry and everything. And I was rocking up in like a Zara dress, I didn't really have anything. and here I was sitting next to all these women in like Chanel and like all this stuff. And I was
Yeah,
like,
it
oh
really
my,
is a different kind of place, isn't it? So
yeah.
you've been in Costa Rica now for 6 years. What's the feeling after 6 years? What's kind of pulling you? Because I know that, we talked that you kind of
Yeah.
like maybe don't feel like you want to stay there permanently.
So
What are you feeling like now?
I think that I love life here, but the trade-off, the things that I'm sacrificing by being here are becoming more and more apparent. And I think I said this to you earlier, like I'm a European at heart. Like, and I'm in Europe, put me in Paris, put me in Stockholm, put me in London, put me anywhere. Like I'm there. Like that is like, this is my environment. Here, it's very foreign still. It's still and I've had some health issues over the years. And I think that when you struggle with your health, that's when you want to feel like everything else around you is as comfortable
Works.
and predictable and safe
Yeah.
as possible. And if you're dealing with health issues and at the same time you're in this environment that is kind of unpredictable and where you're not fully held and supported, and not that people aren't kind, they're extremely kind. Not that the healthcare system isn't great. It's fantastic. In fact, in some ways, it's better than what I've had, for example, in Belgium and things like that. But it's more like the unpredictability of the environment here and just not feeling quite culturally at home.
Yeah.
And that I'm starting to miss. And I think when I was living in Monaco, one of the things I loved the most was driving my car to the airport in Nice and getting on a flight and flying to London, flying to Paris, going to see my mom in Belgium or going to see family in Sweden or even New York. Like I could be like, bang, within a few hours, I was in New York. And here, I don't travel as much because it's
You got to
tougher to get
plan
out.
it.
Yeah, it's tougher to get out, not just because the airport's further away. It's more of a hassle. I was telling you earlier, like, it's not like I can just drive to the airport, leave my car at the airport and go, like, because, the closest airport 20 minutes away, which is great, but I can't leave my car in this environment, especially not in rainy season, because if I do, then I come back and it's rotten. So I have to drive it at least 5 hours away to leave it in a place where it's going to be dry and taken care of. And like, those are little things that always make things a little bit harder. I also have a horse here now. I have 2 dogs. So it just makes the travel a little bit harder than when I was living in Monaco. So I try to go back for like a couple of months here, a couple of months there. But I am starting to think that maybe at some point, I don't know exactly when, I would like to have my base there and come here for maybe a couple of months at a time instead, which is harder because, as I said, I've really rooted myself here now. Like I have a whole life and a whole fur family here. Yeah.
You've got clients, obviously, that you had in Monaco. Did they come with you online to Costa
Yeah.
Rica?
Yeah, that's actually been amazing. So now anytime I go back to Monaco, I still have a bunch of clients so I started my online business in 2019 and called Fit Body Fresh Mind, which is basically all my Pilates classes.
I remember being there, coming up with the name with you.
Yes, you were. Oh my God, that's amazing. I can't even remember that. And mindfulness. And so basically what I did is instead of having, doing one-on-one classes with people, I decided to film my workouts and to film a bunch of content, and I put it all in a platform, which is like a membership, and people get access to everything. So now I still have a lot of people from Monaco who were there with me from the beginning, from day one, from 2019, who've been members ever since. And since then, I've also had, people from all over the world join me. So that's still going strong. I still have a few private clients that I work with one-on-one in Monaco, mainly on the holistic health and nutrition side from here with my business here in Costa Rica. I do retreats, and I also do what else?
Have you done a retreat in Costa Rica?
I have done 4 retreats here since I moved, 4 or 5 retreats here. And I have the next one's coming up in February next year. So that's really exciting. That's one of my favorite things about living here is hosting retreats. So that's been good. I mean, I do feel again that Monaco gave me some incredible clients. And that's another reason why I sometimes feel like, I miss being in that environment. I feel like when I was in Monaco a couple of months ago, I was walking down the street and people were like, Maddy, are you like, I follow you on Instagram, or I'm doing your Pilates workouts. And I'm like, oh, and sometimes these are people I've never met. And so I feel like in Monaco, I'm still like the Pilates and health and wellness girl, whereas here I'm in an environment where a lot of people are in my industry. And I also haven't quite, I guess I have put myself out there, but I've been more focused on developing my business online since I've been here, because for me, it's always been important that I'm able to leave this place and travel.
Yeah, well, that's smart because you do like travel. So you've got to put the effort into the online business, haven't you, really?
Yeah.
And there's so many people doing it. When you look at social media, I was going to say to you, what do you think about social media and the health and wellness industry?
Where do I begin?
Your eyes.
Yeah, I'm like,
the podcast might not be long enough to take it all in, but
I mean, it's, I find that people are being bombarded with so many conflicting messages, and you have to do this and you have to do that. And at the end of the day, what I see in my work with my private clients is that people are under way too much pressure and way too confused. And that pressure and that confusion is making things harder and less healthy, actually. And what we need to do is peel back the layers and really focus on what is it that actually moves the needle and what is it that actually makes us feel good, and trying to, do a checklist of 15 things before you even have your coffee in the morning. I don't think that's healthy. Like, I think health is really about more tuning in and listening and honoring also the moments of rest and relaxation. And I think the more we add to people's plates, the more stressed they become. And we know that stress is a leading, cause of any kind of chronic disease, but also a leading cause of having a really difficult relationship with food. If you're constantly putting yourself under pressure, if you're constantly stressed, what are you going to do to calm yourself down? You're going to eat. And that's what a lot of people think then is a lack of discipline, when actually it's just, lack of compassion and kindness.
Yeah, people are just, they don't listen to their body. I think a lot of people don't even realize that if you eat while you're stressed, you don't even digest properly.
Exactly. And then we have all these issues with bloating and emotional eating and beating yourself up. And I had too many calories. And why did I do that? And I know better. And all this blame. And, I need to go and do a workout to make up for that. And I think it's the pressure. And I've been there, so I know exactly what it feels like. And when I work with clients, it's really about, as you say, learning to listen to their bodies and reconnect. And that requires slowing down. And slowing down is one of the scariest things we can ask people to do in this kind of environment, because it goes against everything that we're being told on social media. Everything on social media is like, push harder, do more. You're not doing enough. It's because you're eating too much. It's because you're doing too much this. You're not enough doing this, and blah, blah, blah. And so if you tell people the opposite, they're like, are you out of your mind? But it's actually what works. And that's one of the reasons I love hosting the retreats in Costa Rica, because when I get people out here, I make them slow down. I'm like, we're going to meditate. We're going to take a really slow, like, Pilates session. And then we're going to do this. And then all of a sudden their nervous system calms down. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my God. And that's when their body starts changing. Their hunger starts changing. They stop craving the junk food. They stop craving the sugar because they're no longer stressed. And so it's really, it's really interesting. And it's an interesting time on social media. It's a really interesting time in my work, because on the one hand, there's a lot more competition with what I do. But at the same time, I feel like there's no competition, because the message that I'm carrying is one that a lot of people are not carrying right now, which is like, let's ignore all the noise and start tuning in with what is it that you actually need.
Yeah. Stop looking at someone else's body and thinking that's how I should be. It's crazy,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the story around menopause and women of a certain age. There's
Yeah.
so much pressure on
Yeah.
you need to lift weights, you need to have creatine,
Yeah.
you need to look like this, you need to be able to have a grip strength and
Yeah.
hang from a bar. It's crazy.
I know. And what I always say is like, whenever I ask myself, like, does this make sense or not? I like to look back, like, let's go back 200 years. Let's go back 300 years. Were women in gyms lifting weights? Like, no, they were not. How often did women fall over and break their hip back then? Like, probably not that often. Otherwise, it would be documented. How many women were obese? How many women had, diabetes? How many women had heart issues and so on? Like, all these chronic conditions are things that have happened in the past 50 to
They're
100
modern
years.
diseases. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're always told, like, it's because you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. And maybe that's not true. Maybe we're just trying to do way too many things and focusing on the wrong things. Yeah.
Well, it's been very great to catch up with you. I feel like I want to ask you kind of just what's next, not just geographically, but are you evolving in terms of, you've got your online business. What are you doing that maybe is something that you haven't done before? Are you looking at doing something new? Or is it
Yeah.
like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it?
No, I am going to continue doing what I'm doing. I'm currently working on a new group coaching program. Well, it's more of an online course, because what I've realized is that my one program, which is giving people all the tools, works great. But not everyone is ready to implement those tools because they have these beliefs and a lot of what we've been talking about, like, I need to push myself harder and I need to get my heart rate up, or I need to lift heavy weights, and like all this pressure. And so what I'm doing more now is an educational course and really giving people the knowledge, because I think once you have the knowledge, then you are more apt to using the tools. And so that's what I'm developing at the moment. I'm actually making it around bloating and getting a flat belly, which is so cliche, but it's kind of part of what I do in my business, and is that I capture people's attention with something that are like, oh, I want a flat belly. And then once I get them in, I'm like, okay, now I got
Let's
you.
look at every other bit of you as well. Yeah.
Now I got your attention. Like, let's
Yeah.
actually work on, regulating your nervous system, and how can we get you to stop craving sugar, not with willpower and discipline, but maybe by helping you reduce stress in your life. And how can we program your body to crave healthier foods? And what are the foods that are actually healthy? I think there's so much confusion. Everyone thinks they eat healthy. And then when I look at what they're eating, I was like, oh my God, this is not.
Food diaries.
Yeah. I'm like, this is why you're bloated. This is why you're moody. This is why you have PMS. This is why you feel like you're crazy. It's because of what you're putting inside of your body. So it's an educational course that I'll be launching soon. So I'm really excited about that. And I think if and when I go back to Monaco and spend more time there, I'd really like to become more involved with organizing events there, in terms of, like, I know that there's a lot of congresses happening in Monaco, a lot of events and things like that, and becoming more of like a wellness coordinator and bringing more wellness into Monaco in a different format to what you've done. But still, I think that now Monaco's ready for it. And that's kind of what I want to do.
Yeah, we might have to work together on
Yeah.
something. Definitely.
I'd love that.
Thanks so much, Maddy. It's been so nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm sending you a ton of love.